From Darnell Dockett buying a pet alligator to Michael Vick spending thousands of dollars on a fish pond, these NFL players really know how to spend their money on the most ridiculous things. Let's start with Chad Ochocinco, shall we?
Another long ball. Chad Johnson, the fastest Bengal, has it. He's going in. And the most
We all knew this guy was bound to do something like this.
They all suck, man. Come on, this me. This me.
I just want to know, how's 35?
Horrible.
I mean, come on, Chad lives for attention. All the media talking this way and that about a new stunt he just pulled. So let's just say absolutely no one was surprised when he showed up to a game in a semi-truck. Though some did have a thing or two to say about the price of that thing. Sure, a lot of semi-trucks are even more expensive than that. But why exactly the player felt the need to spend $100,000 on a huge, loud semi-truck is beyond me. Or anyone else for that matter. Especially considering the fact that it was for his 32nd birthday. A lot of people would choose to buy something different if they had $100K to burn for their birthday. But I guess Chad did what he thought would suit him best. At the very least, that entrance to his team's game against the New York Jets was quite incredible. Speaking of having $100,000 to burn, Chad isn't the only one who has spent this amount of money on something ridiculous. Bryant McKinnie did the same thing. Actually, if the rumors are true, I'd say that this is worse. Most athletes are warned off spending money on useless things. This isn't even an athlete thing. Most people would opt for this advice regardless of their career. But sometimes, it's hard for people to have good impulse control. Bryant McKinnie, the football offensive tackle, who's played for the Miami Dolphins, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Minnesota Vikings, is one of them. Of all the things he could have spent $100,000 on, he went for a bar tab. Seriously, now that I think about it, I would honestly prefer the semi-truck. At least the truck was cool. What with that whole glossy black look, but a bar tab? Just why? On the brighter side, Brian said the story was exaggerated, though TMZ reports might claim otherwise. Apparently, people saw him buy a number of pricey champagnes, and well, it just didn't look like the news was all that false. Well, since that's said and done, should we move on to the next purchase? This one isn't as absolutely ridiculous or outrageous as a bar tab, but somehow even more bizarre than a semi-truck. Everyone, meet Darnell Dockett's pet alligator Nino. Yeah, you heard that one right. No matter how shocking it is, it's true.
This is entirely too big for me to own, but I mean, I would love to just bring him in the backyard of my...
Darnell has a pet gator named Nino. I mean, rich people spend a lot of money on animals, but it usually isn't an alligator. Most people, they buy lions and tigers or any type of big cat, really. There are also wolves, maybe horses, and elephants. Basically anything that might either be useful or can sit there looking pretty. And dangerous, mind you. These animals really aren't ones to mess with, though it seems like rich people tend to forget that a lot. But the thing is, an alligator isn't usually up on the list for an expensive and exotic pet, so Darnell's decision was bizarre to say the least. But it doesn't end there. The NFL player actually wanted to bring Nino to work with him.
The society caters to Chester now. He's a boss. That's one of my best.
Yeah, that wouldn't have ended well. As for me personally, as long as I know everyone will be safe, I wouldn't mind an alligator named Nino around. But I guess the Cardinals weren't of the same opinion, because poor Nino never got to visit Darnell's workplace. Next up on the list is a pretty common purchase for rich people. Unlike Dockett's play, it's a fur coat, typical Joe Namath. Now Joe is one of the most iconic NFL players ever. Everyone has heard of him at least once. Despite the fact that he retired early, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
And representing the inductees, I'm here to say thank you and how much.
Which shows just how talented he is. As for why he retired, well, knee pain. The issue wasn't as big then, but anyone could tell that if he continued, things would only get worse from there.
Surgery, we don't really count, but I did have my knees replaced in 1992.
So Joe spared himself the pain and struggle and retired. He's still known quite well in the football community though. And honestly, like Chad, no one was quite surprised when this guy showed up in an expensive mink fur coat.
Now, Jay. Tails.
That was a good catch.
And the fact that he was sitting on the sidelines of an NFL game, most people would avoid that, but I guess Joe had different ideas. Not to mention that just recently, the fur coat was up for auction. Well, at least the fur coat wasn't that expensive. Even if it was extravagant, at least it looked good, so you can't say the money was a complete waste. Unlike this particular purchase made by a former NFL quarterback, Michael Vick.
Nothing there to throw the football, but here's what Michael Vick brings to the table. Mobility, escapability.
Michael, he's made his fair share of mistakes and irresponsible actions. One thing led to another, which led to, well, jail. Yep, his career was going pretty well until he was convicted. I would feel sorry for him, seeing that he had his future and career ripped away, but I condemn animal cruelty. And Michael was found to be sponsoring an illegal dogfighting ring. At the very least, he's doing better now. His time in prison really changed him. His comeback was successful, and now his way of living is much more sophisticated, and he doesn't spend money on useless and ridiculously expensive things, at least not anymore, because I know the NFL world isn't gonna forget about that $85,000 fish pond anytime soon. Yeah, that one was quite the experience. People didn't really know what to say, and did I mention the $50,000 spent on additional landscaping? Well, at least he stopped spending money on things like these. But if you're thinking that this was weird or out of place, I assure you, you'll wish you never heard the next one, which is the love boat of Fred Smoot. Yeah, out of all the controversies that have ever surrounded NFL players, this has to be one of the weirdest ones. Fred actually bought a cruise ship, and guess what it was used for? Yep, orgies. The love boat included about 90 or more players on that one ship, along with just as many escorts.
For the girls, tickets to fly in, that pays for $1,000 for them to dance. We had like 40 limo.
The number varies from source to source, but one thing is for sure. These women were flown in from a number of different countries and arrived at their destination in expensive cars and clothes. Apparently, this wasn't even the first sex party that the Minnesota Vikings threw, but this one definitely got a bit too out of hand. A number of these players were seen conducting inappropriate acts in public, and they were causing a ruckus. Soon enough, surrounding people called the police, and these players were fined by the NFL for their misconduct. Still, many believe that Fred and the others got off a bit too easily, especially since the NFL is famous for giving much harsher punishments. Well, why don't we take a break from the weirdness and take a look at another normal rich people's activity. Chad Ochocinco.
Firing down the field for Chad Johnson. Oh, he has it. Another.
Yep, it's him again. But in his defense, if you were on a team named the Cincinnati Bengals, wouldn't you want to buy a Bengal tiger? I mean, I would, if I had that type of money. No matter how dangerous they are, they're also absolutely adorable. And at least I know Chad's on my side. But like I mentioned before, buying dangerous and giant cats, typical rich people's activity. And considering this is Chad we're talking about, well, it's no surprise there. So there you go, some of the most ridiculous purchases by NFL players.